let's just get to brass tacks here and get to the story that everybody is talking about, which is the Hulk Hogan controversy. By now, you all know the basic gist of the story. Hulk Hogan, who has had his ups and downs with WWE over the years. He came back last year, hosted WrestleMania, was named the judge on the new season of Tough Enough, and was teasing one last WrestleMania match in Dallas next year. Now, Hogan's been talking about that for a while. I'm coming back, brother. I'm going to wrestle at WrestleMania. And there's been a lot of rumors. Maybe it would be him and Cena. It was a match Cena was open to. It'd probably be a night off for John Cena. Well, that's all out the window. Hulk Hogan was terminated by WWE early Friday morning after they were made aware of a National Enquirer story that was about to break, revealing a racist tirade that Hogan went on almost a decade ago from that sex tape with him and Bubba the Love Sponge's wife. Bubba basically loaned his wife out to Hogan when the two were friends. I guess maybe that was his thing. That was when Hulk's life was just completely in shambles after the divorce, his son's car accident, and whatever else was going on at the time. He was in a very dark place, and I guess had to blow off some steam, and no, that is not a euphemism for something else, although I guess in this case it could be. Unbeknownst to Hogan, he was videotaped, he was video recorded in Bubba's home, banging Mrs. Sponge, and on that tape is where he said these awful, nasty things that are only first coming out now. Now, some people have known about this for a few years. They've known about the racist stuff. They heard the tapes. Somehow, it didn't go fully public until now, which is amazing to me in the world we live in. And all the different media websites and social media and everything else, this didn't become a big thing until now. It kind of blows me away. But there were definitely people who heard the tapes and knew of their existence. WWE apparently not among those who were aware, and so they acted very swiftly once they found out about it. Apparently it's not just one sex tape, it's multiple tapes. I don't know if he's having sex on all the tapes, but there are multiple discs that are in existence. And the Enquirer says that there is more to come. That's what the story said on Friday when it broke. There was nothing else that came out on Friday, and I figured, look, it's the weekend. That would be a very poor time for them to leak more. They're probably holding it. I would think Monday, Tuesday, around then. If there's more stuff that's going to come out, we'll know about it very soon. So there is more to come. That's a very ominous sign, I would think, for Hulk Hogan. It's hard to imagine, to me, that there's something even worse on those tapes. I mean, me having an understanding, being in media and kind of having an understanding about how this stuff generally works, I would think they leak the really awful stuff first. Whatever comes next is just adding insult to injury. At least, if I'm Hulk Hogan, that's what I'm hoping. Hogan knows exactly what's on there. He knows about all this stuff. So, Hogan probably knows if there is something worse, that the worst is yet to come. But I would think it probably doesn't get much worse than this. Unless they have him on tape, assaulting somebody or doing something far more sinister. Hogan, in a statement to People magazine, he apologized. He said, 8 years ago I used offensive language during a conversation. It was unacceptable for me to have used that offensive language. There is no excuse for it, and I apologize for having done it. This is not who I am. I believe very strongly that every person in the world is important and should not be treated differently based on race, gender, orientation, religious beliefs, or otherwise. I am disappointed with myself that I use language that is offensive and inconsistent with my own beliefs. His lawyer contradicted WWE's statement that they terminated Hogan by claiming that Hogan resigned on his own because he didn't want to put them or his family through this. So it's the old, you can't fire me, I quit defense. Which is nonsense. Of course he was fired. There isn't a chance in hell that Hogan quit. He got shit-canned. He can spin it any way he wants to. The guy got shit-canned. As far as what he said on these tapes, I'll read part of it. I don't really want to get into the whole thing here. I don't think that's necessary. It is quite damning that Hogan portrays himself as this born-again Christian and then is caught on tape saying these hateful things. It certainly does not help his reputation, I think, as somebody that, it's very difficult to believe anything the man says in a public forum. He's quoted on the tape as flat out admitting that he's a racist. And, there's a lot of people out there who were saying this is not so bad. He said this in private, as though that somehow condones what he said. Well, it was said in private. Everybody says things in private. You can't fault him for that. Well, unfortunately for Hogan, not everybody has tapes leaked of what they're saying. Hogan had his tape leaked. Now, that's a shitty thing that happened to him. The fact that he was even video recorded without his consent is really, really bad. That's not cool at all. And that really is the basis for the Gawker suit, and we'll get into that in a second. Not excusing any of that stuff. Hogan is also partially a victim in all of this, but he flat out said on the tapes, "I am a racist." You know, there is no debate here about what he said or the context in which he said it. It was not said as a joke. It was not said as him quoting somebody else. It was very, very clear on this tape what he said. He said, "I am a racist," to a point. That's what he said. "I am a racist," to a point. Then he said, "fucking N-word." He says that a couple of times on there, which is even more damning. It's not just him saying, "I'm a racist." He then goes ahead and says, "effing N-word." Okay, there's no excuse for that. Although, again, he said it not quite as PG as I just did. Talked about how his daughter Brooke was making some really bad decisions. "I've spent millions on her music career. I've done everything like a jackass for her. This black millionaire guy offered to fund her music career, and I don't know if she's fucking the black guy's son. If she was going to fuck some N-word, I'd rather her marry an 8-foot-tall one worth $100 million. He said this. He actually said these words. Apparently size is still a very big deal to Hulk Hogan, inside and outside the ring. I can only imagine the meltdown he would have if he found out his daughter was screwing a 5'9" black guy. Talk about a double whammy. I could not have been the only one creeped out by him mentioning his daughter banging other dudes on his own sex tape. Now, granted, he didn't know it was being recorded, but still, this is the Hulk Hogan sex tape, right? And he's caught on this tape talking about the men that his daughter is having sex with, or possibly having sex with. Hulk Hogan, okay? Creepy as ever when it comes to his daughter. It's bad enough I had to see those photos of him rubbing lotion on Brooke's ass all those years ago. Then he goes and marries a woman who was a dead ringer for his own daughter. Now he's caught on a sex tape obsessing over whether or not his daughter is banging a black guy and how tall he should be. I hope he wasn't laying there naked when he said all this. I say this as someone coming at it from a PR background, because that's what WWE found itself in here. A potential PR nightmare, a PR calamity. It was a decision they had to make. I don't fault them for it at all. It was the only decision for them to make. You get a heads up about a story like this, which they were very lucky to have gotten, by the way. You get a heads up that one of your employees was caught on tape throwing around the N-word. I mean, this wasn't some, rapper using the N-word in a song or using it with his friend. This was a grown man using the word in a very disparaging way. And guess what? Even though it was recorded 8 years ago in the privacy of someone's bedroom, that doesn't make it any less disgusting. And in a few hours, it's going to make headlines and be splattered across every news website and every newspaper in the world, which it was. You're a global company that employs plenty of African Americans. You cater to lots of African American fans all over the world. Even the non-African American fans. You don't have to be black to be offended by this. You need to get as far away from that person as possible. Make it very clear you do not condone that type of thing at all. This has nothing to do with the PC police. I'm just waiting for those people to come out. Oh, what a politically correct world we live in. We do. Disgustingly so. I'm with you 100%. That has nothing to do with any of this at all. There is no defending what the man said. Nor is there any question he said it, since he's since come out and apologized for it, thereby admitting that it happened. So we can forget debating whether or not this is even legit. He admits that it is. It did happen. And that was very smart of Hogan to do that. To get out in front of this, because he could have denied the whole thing and made things even worse. He got out in front of it. He said, look, I made a mistake. This is not who I am. If I were him, I'd be all over every television show, every radio show. I would want to be out there apologizing for what happened. He's going to be apologizing for a long time. He better make it part of his new daily routine. Wake up, take a leak, take my Hulk Hogan vitamins, and apologize. That's going to be his new routine for the foreseeable future. But WWE absolutely did the right thing when it comes to cutting all ties with him. They had to. It was their only option. Now, the privacy issue is a big one. Okay, Hulk Hogan was in the privacy of I guess someone else's home, not his own. But the fact is, he was in private. He said these things in confidence, not expecting them to ever be broadcast to the entire world. That's why he and Gawker are in the middle of this major lawsuit. It's a right to privacy issue. Gawker got the sex tape. They posted about a minute of it. This was several years ago. And they refused to take it down. They cited its newsworthiness and people having a right to know since he's a celebrity and he's publicly talked about his sexual conquests before. So, therefore, people have a right to know. That's their position. Hogan claims otherwise. He said, I never consented to being recorded, nor did I consent to Gawker airing the clip. And so here we are. Here's the thing Hogan needs to understand, okay? You are a public figure. And we live in a world where people carry tiny little GPS devices with video cameras in their pockets everywhere they go. Grandmothers, small children, carry smartphones in their pocket wherever they go. You need to be on guard 24 hours a day. That's just how it is. And the iPhone didn't even exist when that sex tape was made. Or at least it wasn't released to the public. The iPhone wasn't even a thing. But he's still a public figure, and he must have been awfully comfortable with that woman to let his guard down that much that he would say something like that to anyone outside of his own home. It's fucked up that the thing got taped and that the tape got leaked without his consent. That's not cool. And I do think Gawker's in a lot of trouble. And if Hogan wins, which there's a very good chance he will, he could bring that entire website down for good. The future of Gawker is really hanging in the balance here with this lawsuit. But you ask yourself, at what cost? Even if he wins, right? Okay, he wins. He wins a $100 million judgment. But at what cost? Because he was the one who filed the lawsuit. He didn't want to settle this out of court because he felt he was wronged, which he was. Now that's coming back to bite him on the ass, and it's ruined his reputation. I mean, the guy is just toxic. He's poison right now. He is tainted for life. This will be part of his legacy, no matter what kind of comeback he may be able to put together for himself in a few years. This will be part of his legacy. The damage is done. But him filing that lawsuit, that's why this stuff got leaked. And his lawyer is trying to find out if Gawker were the ones behind the leak. Gawker denies it. They said they had nothing to do with this stuff leaking. Hogan's lawyer seems to think otherwise, and if they can prove it, he flat out said that we're taking this website down for the count. I mean, think about it. If he would have settled this out of court, none of this would be happening right now. But the fact is, he had every right to sue, and now he's got to deal with the consequences of that. Any monetary judgment he wins cannot make up for the damage that he did to himself here. He fucked up. In more ways than one. He fucked up big time. And, I don't want to hear that, oh, it was so long ago, Solomonster. Like he was some young, naive kid when the thing was recorded. He was 52 years old when that tape was made. He's now 61. He knew what he was saying. He knew exactly what he was doing. He knows the difference between right and wrong. I don't want to hear otherwise. And now he's got to pay a heavy price for it. And trust me, he needs that WWE money. I mean, he really took a hit this week. He got slammed in the divorce. 70% of his assets went to his ex-wife. He needs that WWE money. And he's not getting it anymore. At least for the lifestyle that he lives. He needs that WWE money. I'm sure Hulk Hogan could get by just fine on what he already has living in a tiny apartment somewhere, but that's not Hulk Hogan's style. Hulk Hogan is not going to move into a tiny one-bedroom apartment somewhere. And he's going to take a real hit now because he just will not have those checks coming in anymore. Now, I said this to Joey Numbers of Wrestling Soup on our Facebook page because he talked about how all he had to do was stay out of trouble, keep his mouth shut. That's it. He was made, he was Teflon. He was a made man. He was in the perfect role. He was this great ambassador for the company, this great ambassador for wrestling. And all he had to do was keep his mouth shut. Don't say anything that's going to get himself in trouble. If you are a public figure, you should know better than to use the N-word, okay? Even in private, even if that's how you really feel, nothing good can come from that word leaving your lips. Ever. Do you remember those jailhouse recordings I played on the show many years ago with Nick Hogan? On the phone, whining and complaining to his parents about being locked up. Okay, his son was drag racing. Hulk Hogan's son was drag racing. Under the influence, mind you. And he wrecked his car. And his friend, John Graziano, who was in the passenger seat, he was badly, badly injured. And there's Hogan talking to his son on this jailhouse recording, effectively blaming the friend for what happened to him. He was a negative person, and so I guess bad karma, right? Bad things happen to bad people. This kid is a vegetable for the rest of his life. But it's not Nick's fault. Oh, no. Nope. It's John's fault. Now, granted, John was not wearing his seatbelt. So he's not completely innocent in what happened to him. But that's not the point. When I first listened to that, and this goes back about 5 years, and I played this audio on the Sound Off at the time, when I listened to that, it made me so angry, and my whole view... I mean, we already know Hogan was full of shit whenever he would talk about anything really in public. The guy talks out of both sides of his mouth. You never know what you're going to get when this guy speaks. How can you believe anything that comes out of this guy's mouth? He already had that reputation. Everything with this guy was a work. Everything with this guy was exaggerated to the nth degree. We already knew that, but when I heard those jailhouse tapes with him and Nick and Linda and Nick, it changed my whole view of that whole family, and not in a good way. It made me so angry when I first heard that. And his son on these tapes is so devastated by what happened. He's so concerned about what just happened to his friend. All he could do is tell his father to find him the best reality TV deal he could so that when he gets out, he can make the most money. Reality. I remember these tapes like it was yesterday. Reality. They're already talking about what to call the show, the new Nick, all this. And I'm listening to this and like my skin is crawling. The whole idea of following a celebrity just out of jail on their road to redemption. They had this whole thing mapped out right after everything happened. You listen to that and you see what kind of people you're dealing with here. So when I see people asking, why, Hulk, why? How could you be so stupid? Because bad judgment is like an incurable disease that runs in that family. That's why. And I'll give you another reason why none of this should be all that surprising. Because the man made a career out of being something he's not. He lies the way that you and I breathe oxygen. I can't ever tell. Like I just said, I can't ever tell if we're getting Hulk Hogan or we're getting Terry Bollea. I'm not even sure there's a difference. I don't even know that Terry Bollea exists anymore. They've become one and the same. The man's entire life has been one giant work. The guy built his reputation off say your prayers, eat your vitamins, don't do drugs. Great message to kids. I'm not saying it's not. But obviously the vitamins he was taking were a little bit different. He's far from the only wrestler to say one thing in public and do another in private. But, we put these guys up on a pedestal, and then we act surprised when we hear stuff like this. Oh my God, I can't believe this. How could something... This is Hulk Hogan. This is the guy from my childhood. How could something like this happen? This stuff doesn't shock me anymore. It's disappointing, but it's not surprising. And I say this as somebody who grew up a Hulk Hogan fan. I grew up right in that period, the rock and wrestling, Hulkamania boom period. Okay, I was right in there with a lot of other people. I hate to see what the man has become. I really do. I hate to see it. Between the divorce, the 9 back surgeries where he could barely move, all the other scandals, now this. I mean, look, I was in Madison Square Garden this year, okay, in February of this year, for Hulk Hogan Appreciation Night. They raised a banner in his honor in the Garden. They had Jimmy Hart was there, Ric Flair was there, the NWO, Triple H. Everybody came out to pay tribute to Hogan and all of his classic matches in that building. It was very, very well done. It was a fun time. I was happy to be there. Okay, I bought a ticket to go to that. I am still, on some level, a Hogan fan. It's hard to forget that. It's hard to forget all that stuff. Growing up as a kid, Hogan Andre, the Mega Powers, Hogan and Warrior, on and on and on. I grew up on that stuff. I still love watching it. I can go on the network right now and watch it. I wouldn't have a problem. It's hard. It's hard to see someone rise so high and fall so hard because the bigger star that you are, the farther the distance you have to fall. If Jim the Anvil Neidhart falls off the wagon, and he's had his own issues before, if Jim the Anvil Neidhart falls off the wagon and we hear about, he's in a dark place, I mean, first of all, we've heard stories about him before anyway, but it's like, that's what a sad story, right? But it's Jim Neidhart. He was a star, but he wasn't a humongous star. A guy like Hulk Hogan, in a situation like this, he's going to fall a lot further than somebody like Jim the Anvil Neidhart would. Because people looked up to this guy. This guy was like a hero. He was a hero. He was a hero to kids. He was a great guy. He's the Hulkster. People love dressing up like him. Every week at TV, every Halloween, all you see, Hulk Hogan costumes everywhere. And so it's hard to see somebody like that, fall so far. But I'm not going to sit here and make excuses for what he did because he's Hulk Hogan. Just because of who he is. Who gives a shit? I don't care who he is. He's not all that he makes himself out to be. And people need to understand that so that they're not so goddamn shocked when something like this happens. Now, WWE, they did what they had to do. If I were them, I would have done the exact same thing. Cut bait, don't look back. I do think he will be back one day. People have asked me that. Do you think he's completely done? And no, I think he will be back one day. He'll recover from this scandal. It may take a few years. He will recover from this, and I do believe he'll be back in WWE. This is not the last we've seen of Hogan there, unless he drops dead in the next couple of years, God forbid, or something. He will be back. But it's going to be a long time. It's not going to happen next year. It's not going to happen the year after. And he's not getting any younger. He's already in his 60s. I don't think this will ever fully blow over. Again, people are not going to ever forget about this. This will always be there. This will always taint him. When it comes to racist rants, you could come back from that, but people don't forget. It wrecked Mel Gibson's career. He's never recovered from it. It wrecked whatever career Michael Richards had left. Right? Kramer from Seinfeld. He's out there doing stuff now, but you think the name Michael Richards, you immediately think of the fucked up things that he said in that comedy club. That will follow him to his grave. When it comes to race, that shit sticks to you for life. That being said, do I think he should be, removed from the Hall of Fame? No, I don't think he should be removed. I think that's ridiculous. They took him off the website. That doesn't mean he's out of the Hall of Fame. There's people freaking out. They took Hulk Hogan out of the Hall of Fame. How dare they? They didn't take Hulk Hogan out of the Hall of Fame. They took him off the website. So for all the people I saw complaining about that, the people that run the website were told late Thursday night, early Friday morning, scrub all mentions on the site as quickly as you can. Anything related to Hulk Hogan. That included the Hall of Fame page. That included the Tough Enough page, the Superstar Bios page, the alumni page, all that stuff. It was one sweeping, get him off there, so we can have time to kind of think things through. So they haven't even made a decision yet about what they're going to do as far as the Hall of Fame is concerned. Right now, he's still in there. Could that change? Yeah, I guess it could change, but I don't think it will. So just calm down. People just freaking out about that. It's a freaking web page. I mean, I know pretty much the Hall of Fame, that's all it is really, is a web page. It doesn't really exist anywhere except on the web. But no, they did not take Hulk Hogan out of the Hall of Fame. They did take his rock and wrestling cartoon off the network, and they just added they just added all those episodes, and now they're gone. They're not going to blur his face on his matches or anything like that. They are going to have a very big problem come next year's WrestleMania when they do all those WrestleMania video packages, Hogan slamming Andre, and all that kind of stuff. I say good luck with that. 2K has taken him out of the next video game, 2K16. There will be no Hulk Hogan or Hollywood Hogan anywhere in the game. They are doing what they feel they have to do to distance themselves from this mess because it's the world we live in. They don't need or want the bad publicity, and I do not fault them for it at all. The guy is toxic. They need to stay the hell away from him. I see Ric Flair is one of the names being rumored to replace Hogan on Tough Enough. I'm hearing Bret Hart is a possibility as well, but Ric Flair seems to be the running top name right now. We won't know until Tuesday. The irony of that is amusing to me. All I could think when I hear that is, what Teddy Long must think. Seeing as how Teddy Long has told stories in, I think it was in his shoot interview with Kayfabe Commentaries, or maybe a U-shoot, whatever it was, about Ric Flair being a racist and using the N-word on him many times back in the day. So if Ric Flair ends up replacing Hulk Hogan, because of Hulk Hogan's racist rant, I think there's a lot of irony in that. I want to say one last thing here, and then we'll move on to more important matters. I see a lot of mainstream websites, not just wrestling websites, it's all over Twitter, but a lot of mainstream sites now have picked up on that Survivor Series clip of Vince McMahon using a variation of the N-word on John Cena. The version that ends with the letter A and not ER. There is a difference there, a very big difference I think people are missing when it comes to those two words. One is a form of hate speech, and the other is a slang term that people, many of whom are African American, use as a term of endearment amongst their friends. Okay, that doesn't make it right. I still think it's fucked up, personally. But that's a major distinction that I think people need to make. You can't just be like, oh, it's all the same. No, it's not all the same. You can't just sweep it under the rug. Oh, it's all the same. It's the same word. It's not the same word. All right, cut the crap. It's not the same word. They actually just had a scene like that on The Rock Show, Ballers, a few weeks ago. Rob Corddry blurted out that word, and he got his ass tossed off a yacht for it because he's white. He's a white dude. Note to white people, do not use that word. It does not make you look cool. It makes you sound ignorant and out of touch, which is exactly how it made Vince McMahon look in that clip. I'm pretty sure that was by design. The difference here is that was a scripted television skit that was intended for comedy. It was bad comedy, but it was still done for comedy. Okay, just like Roddy Piper painting himself half black, or the Mexicools riding to the ring on lawnmowers. Believe me, WWE has its own history to answer for when it comes to racist shit. Not just on camera, by the way, behind the scenes as well. They are not an innocent party when it comes to racism. Not at all. They would argue, oh, well, that stuff was done for, in the name of entertainment. I think the only thing like that they've ever done that I actually did find entertaining, and I admit I still do, I can't help it, Akeem the African Dream. You will never convince me that Akeem was not entertaining. The sight of this 400-pound white guy wearing spandex with a picture of Africa on his back, as though he couldn't tell what it was. It said Africa on it. Dancing about as horribly as I've seen a human being dance. That will never not be funny to me. I say let's put Akeem aside here. He's the lone exception. None of this means that WWE should be let off the hook for being hypocrites. People are saying they're hypocrites because of what I just mentioned, right? All the racist stuff they've done. Put that on the side for a second. I'm not even talking about that. They should not be let off the hook for being hypocrites for a different reason. When in the same statement where they announced they were terminating Hogan, they also said, WWE is committed to embracing and celebrating individuals from all backgrounds as demonstrated by the diversity of our employees, performers, and fans worldwide. Boy, doesn't that sound great. Forget the fact that Michael Hayes is still employed by WWE, a man who has thrown that word around before and gotten in trouble for it, okay, with Mark Henry. And by the way, Mark Henry put a statement out on his Twitter where, for the first time I can remember publicly, he acknowledged the fact that he's had racial issues with WWE before, and he works for them. But Hayes has had issues with using that word in front of Mark Henry and allegedly with Bobby Lashley. That has about as much to do with anything as the reason that Bobby Lashley left WWE. And I think got a full release, because that could have turned out a lot worse for the company than it was. Okay, they still employ Michael Hayes. He's been there for how many years? And in an executive position, no less. Never fired. He's been suspended, right? There are things he's done. He's gotten in trouble for it, but never fired. That statement that they put out sounds great on paper. Here's where it all falls apart. And some people are not going to like this because they portray this guy now as this great hero. That's the narrative, right? But for them to distance themselves from Hulk Hogan and embrace the Ultimate Warrior the way they did last year and market him for the Hall of Fame really is the ultimate act of hypocrisy. And I see very few people, some people, but I see very few people pointing to that. All I see is this stupid Vince McMahon clip of him trying to be funny. And I just shake my head because now that's spread like wildfire and that's all anybody is talking about, and you're completely missing the point. There's a much more serious point to be made here, and you're not making it because you're too busy circulating some dumb shit YouTube clip. Look at the Warrior. Okay, this guy, he died last year. And everybody said great things about him. I think I was as complimentary of him as I could be on my own show because, look, the guy just died, right? You're not going to pile on. Well, it's been almost a year and a half now. I think enough time has gone by where we can be adults and we can look at this for what it really is. Because even though the Warrior has never been caught on tape using the N-word, to my knowledge, he has said plenty of hateful, nasty, homophobic things. And they built a goddamn statue of the guy. He was pissed that Martin Luther King Jr. had a holiday dedicated to him and George Washington didn't. He only marched 40 miles and had a security escort the whole time. That's what he said about Martin Luther King Jr. The man ended up shot dead. I can't imagine why he would want to have security with him. He once referred to Droz. You remember Droz, right? Very sad what happened to him. WWE had him co-hosting their web show Bite This for a while that they used to do. It was Droz and Todd Grisham. He referred to Droz as the cripple, and he referred to Grisham as the queer. What a swell guy. Grisham now is with ESPN. He's happily married, by the way. He has a kid. Or about the time that he told a college crowd the Warrior did, right? Queers, and again, that's his word. They're not as legitimate as heterosexual people. That's what he said. All the while, WWE has this partnership with GLAAD. He once celebrated the fact that Bobby Heenan was dying of cancer. And you know how I feel about Bobby Heenan. I'm the biggest Bobby Heenan fan you'll find. Celebrated the fact that this guy was suffering and dying from cancer. The irony there, of course, is that Bobby Heenan ended up outliving the Ultimate Warrior. I find that kind of funny. The stuff about Hurricane Katrina. Killed almost 2,000 people in New Orleans, the same city where this guy was inducted into the Hall of Fame last year. He insulted the people who lived there. He called New Orleans a cesspool, and he called all the people there fat. So many fat people, he said, just to pile on. And that's only a few examples. I can go on. Not only did they induct this guy into their Hall of Fame, they named an award after him. And they built that bronze statue. When you walk into Titan Tower, it's the first thing you see is that Ultimate Warrior statue. They ought to build a Hogan statue and sit it across from the Warrior one. So if you're looking for a reason to point at WWE and yell hypocrite, there's your reason, not some stupid comedy segment on YouTube. So at the end of the day, Hogan has nobody to blame for this but himself. It's shitty what happened to him in terms of the stuff getting leaked. He's a small victim in all this. I feel maybe a little bit sorry for him in that respect, but really, overall, I don't feel sorry for him at all. He made his bed. He should know better. He's been in the public eye his entire life. He's got to live with the consequences now. It's going to cost him a lot of money. His reputation is forever tainted until the day he dies, and that's just something he has to deal with. That's not WWE's fault. That's not anybody's fault but his own, and that's something that he has to live with now.